Welcome to Home, Space and Reason, a podcast about creating a home that thrives.
Hi there, I'm Christina Browning, your host. If you know your home could be so much more than it is, I discuss home functionality, aesthetics, and automation. I'm a realtor in Portland, Oregon, and a home functionality coach. I geek out on every subject imaginable regarding your home and yard, challenging you to think of your space differently to get the most out of every square foot. I pose questions for you to think through about your space and your reason. This podcast is all positive, offering you virtual fist bumps and celebrating every win. Remember, there's no such thing as perfect, but you can still aim for your best every day. Join me on social media by searching for the handle Space and Reason. Immerse yourself in deeper thinking about your home with cues from me. In this episode, let's discuss the space usage specific to your kitchen cupboards. Question: what is America's obsession with mugs, tumblers, and drinking containers all about? The one thing it seems every single home has in common that I visit or do home functionality work in is that they all have far too much cupboard space being occupied by drinking containers that they don't use, like sometimes double or triple. Sometimes I will open a door and every single shelf, top to bottom, is literally full of tumblers, mugs, drinking containers of any kind. And when I inquire about which ones they use, it's always like 3. I've never, ever met anyone who had about 4 or 5 cups or mugs, and that's it, including myself. When we examine which ones we use time and time again, which one can't you wait until it gets out of the dishwasher to use? Like sometimes you'll just be like, I'll wait, thanks. You'll see you have your favorite. And then I'm going to suggest no matter how much money was spent on the others, I'm going to suggest that you don't need them. Even if they were a gift, even if they were a fad, even if you waited in a long line for it. Yes, I'm talking to you, Stanley Cups. Gift them forward, and then more importantly, do not buy any more, ever, unless yours breaks. Also, in this same category is do not gift mugs and cups to teachers, to colleagues, to anyone, because you are gifting guilt that they can't get rid of it because it was a gift. And you are contributing to the lack of room in their cupboard, which is a daily reminder of feeling out of control. Every morning when you open your cupboard to get the mug out for coffee or tea, if you don't feel delighted and completely at ease with what you see, that little stabbing, unconscious pain could be fully eliminated if you came to terms with your drinking container quantity. Now, before you think I'm being judgy, I had to come to terms with this myself. I realized that when I'm out in the world seeing displays, I'm being tempted to buy something that's especially cute, or a souvenir maybe because we're in a different state. But working with other homeowners has given me a different perspective. It helped me to look inward and really question, why is so much space in my own home occupied by so many things I never use? We gifted them forward, and I am no longer tempted because of this thinking, this reflection. And I'm now kind of rather offended by displays like this knowing it's tempting every one of us, and we all already have too many. We don't need more. It's a signifier of consumerism at its core. Stanley, Hydro Flask, Yeti, and Frank Green all rank among the top it brands to be seen with. It's a trend, folks. Ask yourself, is it a pain to be carting around this giant thing with me? Do I have room in my cupboards at home for something this tall? Am I being suckered by advertising and the feeling of I've got to have it on social media? Think deeper about this subject that is so prevalent. It's only a big deal because of scale. Every household I have been to has this same problem. If it were only me that had a container addiction, it wouldn't be a big deal. If it were only you, no big deal. Imagine if just every other household had their cupboards bursting with too many mugs and tumblers. I would suggest that number is more, but for argument's sake, let's say it's every other. And the average number of tumblers and coffee mugs I haul out of the homes I work with is 10, clearing an entire shelf once the remaining ones are condensed. With 131 million households in the United States, that means there are 650 million extra drinking vessels sitting in our kitchens just in this country, making it an earth problem. We individually owe it to our children and grandchildren to realize these impulse buys of another mug or another tumbler is resulting in more plastic and metals eventually being buried in the ground. And we owe it to them to call ourselves out on the urge to buy more or gift them like ever. We are each responsible only for our own actions, and once we know better, we do better. I have vowed to do better personally and use my platform to help spread the thoughts, numbers, and sentiments, drawing attention to this disturbing issue that quietly festers in our cabinets. There's nothing quite like the peace of mind you get when you open up a cabinet and it has only the few things you use daily, which are things you deeply love to use, to hold, to sip from. This is what I hope for you. It's like a giant sigh, exhaling peace and quiet when you open your cupboards, instead of feeling a jab of feeling inadequate and out of control. Margot Aaron authored an article in Medium under the topic Psychology of Stuff, and she writes, quote, "The simple truth is you can't make people buy something they don't want. You can, however, make people buy things they don't need." She later goes on to explain, shopping was invented. Yes, invented. Back in the day, the ultra-wealthy were the only ones who had a lot of things, and they certainly did not shop for them. Clothing was made by a custom tailor, art was commissioned or inherited, and dinnerware was a family heirloom. You got bragging rights for quality, durability, and longevity. Normal people had fewer things because they were difficult to manufacture and produce and therefore expensive. The idea of something being disposable or portable or cheap didn't exist. Plastic wasn't mainstream yet. Aluminum was just being invented, and only one company had an assembly line. There wasn't much to shop for because you couldn't produce anything at scale yet. You had one coat, one pair of gloves, one pair of shoes, one pair of pants, and you took care of your stuff because you didn't have much of it. Shopping, in its inception, introduced the freedom of expression and freedom of choice into the mainstream. It was the first time in history where things that were confined to the upper class were suddenly accessible to anyone. Increased access to things we don't need, or more accurately, things we lived without for centuries but now have, had massive cultural consequences. We never buy what we think we're buying. We don't buy things. We buy how things make us feel. End quote. Knowing that shopping and acquiring a new thing is an emotional experience, affirming your self-concept, start to think of yourself as a person who cares about your child's future. Our future on this earth could be a wonderful step in the right direction. If I care about the earth and stopping these wild over-the-top storms that are ever present now, or at least making sure they don't get worse, creating more loss of life, more destruction of our homes, then we don't buy more cups, more mugs, more things we already own, because that goes against who we are, how we identify. We only control our own actions, one small decision at a time. If we care about the trajectory of these megastorms and super hot summers, then we think of ourselves as advocates for our planet. I identify as a person who can make a difference with my choices. That is as much about what I don't buy as it is the companies that I choose to support when I buy. And now, grab a piece of paper and a pen. Let's think about some questions to ask yourself about your space and your reason. Meander over into the kitchen and let's open the cupboard where your cups and mugs and tumblers live. Question number 1. If I could only use one cup for my morning drink, which one would it be? Take it out. Sit it on the counter. Now ask yourself the same question if you have a partner living with you. What is their favorite morning cup? It maybe feels good in my hand, or maybe has some kind of sentimental value. Question number 2. If I have a tumbler I carry around for water or I go to the gym, which is my favorite? Take it out. Put it on the counter. Do the same for your partner or kids. Funny enough, when I did this exercise for myself, the ones I used most often were never even in the cabinet because it was already in my car to go to the gym. So it never even lived in the cupboard. Question number 3. With those remaining, if there are any that have photos on them or something that was a gift and you feel you just can't get rid of it, keep those for guests that come. Add those few to the pile on your counter. And everything else put in a box or a bag. Close the lid, label it so you remember what's in it, and stash it in the closet or in the garage, anywhere other than here, just for a couple of weeks to see if you miss any of them. My bet is that you won't, and then gift them forward on Buy Nothing. The reason you close the lid is because many people, once they see them again, can't let them go, even though there's no rational reason to keep them. This is the feel-good part. Question number 4. What do I use most often that needs to be more accessible and maybe up higher? What could I do with more cupboard space? So let's say your toaster lives in a lower cupboard. Could you pull that up and put it where all of those old cups and mugs and tumblers used to be? Would that be more convenient, less bending over? Let me tell you how jealous I am of some of these folks that live in the American South, where they have enough property that their porches are grand enough for full tables to eat around, a row of rocking chairs, or a porch swing. It evokes so many emotions, as we have seen these in countless movies, and there's a reason why we see them in movies. They strike a chord in all of us. Episode 92 is all about porches. If you haven't listened yet, go check it out. I also love thinking of reducing the chaos in our home, but it can feel overwhelming, and maybe you don't know where to start. I broke it down into baby steps, just thinking about only your morning experience in episode 57. Do your mornings feel the way you would want them to? What do you want your morning to look like when you wake up? Part of that experience is opening your cabinet and having a beautiful, simple handful of choices of what you're going to drink out of. The rest of it can be recapped in episode 57 for doing deeper thinking just about what kind of morning I want. If you happen to live in the greater metro Portland, Oregon area and you'd like to hire me for some home functionality issues, including overwhelm, or as your realtor, if you have a home to buy or sell, reach out to me through social media or my website, spaceandreason.com. You'll also find a way to contact me, including getting on my calendar if you look in the show notes. If you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to subscribe to this show so new episodes are automatically queued for you. It's one less thing you need to go search for, reducing your mental load. Thanks for sitting in on this conversation about creating a home that thrives. If you haven't yet, would you leave a review for me? Thanks so much. I'll meet you back here for the next episode.